My stepson said I had no right to a voice, so I took my voice out of the budget. No more gifts, no more trips, no more tickets. The house grew quieter and emptier. Subscribe to the channel and share your stories in the comments. And now, let's get started. My name's Michael. I'm 45, though most mornings I feel twice that. I used to believe that respect could be earned the slow way, through patience, consistency, and quiet strength. I thought if I kept showing up, kept giving, kept proving that I was reliable, it would one day mean something. It took me years to understand that in some families, no amount of effort can buy respect, not when blood is the only currency they recognize. I have 2 daughters of my own, Lily and Hannah. They're not perfect, but they're kind. They still text me just to ask if I've eaten. They grew up watching me work, watching me keep promises, and somehow that turned them into decent human beings. With them, love feels like a two-way street, steady, earned, real. But with my stepsons, Jake and Lucas, it's been a one-way road paved with my money and their indifference. Rebecca, my wife, had the boys from her first marriage. When we met, she told me their father, Ken, was unreliable. "He's charming," she said once, "but he can't commit to anything." I should have listened harder. She meant that literally, not just in love, but in fatherhood, too. Ken was the type of man who disappeared for months, then showed up with new sneakers and a phone full of filtered photos to prove he was still a dad. The boys adored him for it. They didn't see the lies, the emptiness behind the smiles. They only saw the man who arrived with gifts, not the man who paid for the roof they slept under. I never tried to erase him. I just wanted to fill in the blanks, to make sure they had stability. I covered everything. Braces, tutoring, summer trips, even therapy when Jake went through his "I hate everyone" phase, and Rebecca said he needed a professional to help him process his emotions. I paid the bills, she booked the appointments, and Ken sent a text with a thumbs-up emoji from whatever bar he was drinking in that night. I thought the boys would see the difference eventually, that they'd realize who stayed, who kept them fed, who quietly made sure their lives didn't fall apart. But they didn't see me, not really. To them, I was background noise. The man who paid but didn't count. Started small. Jake would forget to say thank you when I handed him money for a school trip. Lucas would roll his eyes when I reminded him to do chores. They treated my words like suggestions they could ignore until their mother repeated them. I'd tell Jake to take out the trash and he'd shrug. Then Rebecca would walk in, say the same words, and suddenly the trash would be out the door. It was as if my voice only mattered when it came from her mouth. There were uglier moments too, small humiliations disguised as jokes. Jake once said, "Ken would never nag about this stuff. He's chill." Lucas laughed and added, "Yeah, you're like a teacher who never clocks out." I laughed along, pretending it didn't sting, but inside I felt that slow burn that doesn't go away. Another time, at a family barbecue, one of Rebecca's relatives asked how Jake's car was running. The used Honda I bought him when he got into college. Jake smirked and said, "Yeah, my dad really came through." I waited for Rebecca to correct him. She didn't. She just smiled like it didn't matter who got the credit. That was the moment I realized silence can be a weapon too. Every now and then I tried to talk to Rebecca about it. She'd sigh, tired, and say, "They're kids, Michael. Teenagers. They'll grow out of it." But they didn't grow out of it, they grew into it. Their disregard matured right alongside them. Jake turned his indifference into arrogance. Lucas turned it into sarcasm. I became the man who was always around but never respected, the one who fixed everything while being mocked for existing. Still, I kept providing. I told myself it was for Rebecca, for the stability of the house, for the illusion of family. When Jake started applying to universities, I filled out his financial forms, wrote checks, and made calls he never thanked me for. I drove him to campus visits while he sat in the passenger seat with his headphones on, never once saying a word. When Lucas wanted to join a soccer camp out of town, I paid the full cost. Ken posted a picture of him in uniform later with the caption, "So proud of my boy." Sometimes, after everyone went to bed, I'd sit in the kitchen and look at the bills spread out on the table: tuition, insurance, car payments, groceries. The list felt endless. I tell myself it was worth it, that one day, They'd realize the man who stayed is the one who matters. But every act of giving seemed to make them respect me less. The more I did, the more invisible I became. There were moments I almost walked away. Like the night Lucas got drunk at a friend's house. And it was me who drove across town at 2 in the morning to bring him home. He puked in my car, then laughed about it the next day. Rebecca said, "He's embarrassed. Don't take it personally." But I did. I took all of it personally. How could I not? I was cleaning up their messes while their father's name sat framed on the mantel in a photo from 5 years ago. The three of them at some theme park, all smiles, all lies. Once, when Ken actually showed up for Lucas's birthday, he brought an expensive drone. The boys worshipped him for it. The next day, the thing broke, and they came to me to fix it. I did. Quietly. Without a word. That was the pattern. Ken dazzled them for a weekend, then vanished, and I was left to handle the fallout. It wasn't just about money. It was the way they looked through me, as if my efforts were a given, not a choice. As if I owed them this life they barely appreciated. I used to think love could change people. That steady affection could rewrite resentment. But I've learned that when someone decides you're an outsider, no amount of giving will make you family. You can pour yourself into them until you're empty, and they'll still look past you toward the man who abandoned them. Because blood, even rotten blood, shines brighter in their eyes than loyalty ever could. The irony is, I didn't mind being the man in the background, not at first. I just wanted a home that worked. But the cracks grew. Their comments became sharper. Ken wouldn't care if we stayed out late. Ken says you're too strict. Ken said you're trying too hard. He said. Every insult was wrapped in their father's name, like they were quoting scripture. And Rebecca, she heard it all. She'd flinch sometimes, offer a weak, "That's not nice, boys." But she never demanded they stop. She never defended me. Her silence said more than her words ever could. Still, I kept doing what I'd always done. Paid, fixed, carried. I convinced myself that love wasn't about what you received. It was about what you gave. That line used to sound noble. Now it just sounds pathetic. The night before everything changed, I remember sitting alone in the living room, staring at the family photos Rebecca insisted we keep on the wall. I noticed how few of them actually included me. There were dozens of the boys with their real father, even after the divorce. There were pictures of Ken at their games, Ken at their graduations, Ken at dinners I wasn't invited to because, as Rebecca once said, it would be awkward for the boys. My daughters, meanwhile, were barely visible. A photo here, a smile there, like guests in their own home. That's when it hit me. I wasn't part of this family. I was the scaffolding holding it up while everyone else pretended the house stood on its own. But still, I held my tongue. I went to bed. I told myself tomorrow would be normal. Dinner, conversation, laughter, maybe even a moment that felt like connection. Tomorrow would prove me wrong. It happened during dinner, the kind of evening that starts harmless and ends like a scar. Rebecca had cooked pasta, the boys were home, and for once, everyone was at the table. I thought maybe, just maybe, the quiet between us was something like peace. Then Jake opened his mouth. We were talking about summer plans. I mentioned that maybe we should cut back this year. Not cancel anything, just scale down the unnecessary stuff. College tuition was heavy, and Lucas's travel team fees had doubled. I said it calmly, even lightly. Maybe we skip the second vacation this year. Save a bit for emergencies. Jake snorted. That ugly, dismissive laugh teenagers use when they want to humiliate you. You don't even get a say, he said. You're not our dad. The room went still. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Rebecca froze. Lucas didn't even look up from his phone. He just smirked and said, "Yeah, stop deciding things for us." I wish I could say I yelled, that I slammed the table and demanded respect. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the two boys I'd spent half my life providing for, realizing that all those years of patience had bought me nothing. The words hit harder than they should have because they were true, at least in their eyes. Rebecca tried to smooth it over. "Boys, don't talk like that," she said. But there was no conviction in her voice. She looked at me with embarrassment, not anger. The kind of look people give when someone spills wine on a carpet. Irritation mixed with pity. I nodded slowly, set my fork down, and said nothing. There are moments in life when silence says more than fury ever could. That was one of them. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Rebecca, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone, pretending not to notice the storm brewing inside me. "They didn't mean it," she whispered finally. "They're just kids. They're grown," I said. "Jake's in college. Lucas drives." They meant every word. She sighed, rolled away from me, and that was the end of the conversation. But the words kept replaying in my head, "You're not our dad," over and over, like a hammer driving a nail into the coffin of everything I'd built. By morning, something inside me had hardened. Not anger, clarity. I got up before anyone else, made coffee, and sat at the dining table with my laptop. For years, I had been the silent financier of their lives. My name was on every account, every subscription, every automatic payment that kept them comfortable. If my voice didn't matter, neither would my wallet. I opened the spreadsheets, tuition payments, allowances, insurance premiums, cell phone plans, streaming services, gas cards, all of it. One by one, I went through each account, noting what was in my name. It was staggering. Every corner of their lives traced back to me. Even their Netflix password was mine. That morning, I began cutting ties. Not emotionally, financially. I called the insurance company and removed Jake's car from my policy. I canceled Lucas's game subscriptions and their streaming accounts. I froze the gas cards. I closed the shared account Rebecca used for household expenses that somehow only ever benefited her sons. It wasn't done in rage. It was surgical, deliberate, like amputating a diseased limb to save what's left of the body. When Rebecca woke up, I told her. She was still in her robe, hair tangled, eyes half open. "I'm stepping back," I said. She frowned. "From what?" "From them," I said simply. "From paying for their everything." She blinked, confused. "Michael, what are you talking about?" "I mean exactly what it sounds like. From now on, anything that involves your sons comes from you or from Ken. I'm done covering their lives." She laughed. That nervous laugh she used when she didn't want to face reality. "That's not funny. It's not a joke." Her smile died. "You can't just stop, Michael. They're still kids." "They're not kids," I said. "They're men. Old enough to tell me I don't belong. Old enough to decide who's in charge. Fine. Let them live by that." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. "You're overreacting. They were rude, yes, but—" "No," I said, cutting her off. "They were honest. I just finally decided to take them at their word." She didn't respond. Just stood there, mouth slightly open, searching for some line that would make me relent. None came. By afternoon, the silence between us had turned into something solid. A wall made of all the years I'd tried to hold this family together by paying for it. I could hear Jake upstairs laughing through his headphones, probably on a call with friends, completely unaware that the invisible safety net under his life had just been pulled away. Lucas was sprawled on the couch, surrounded by snack wrappers I'd bought. It was almost poetic, the last meal before the famine. That night, Rebecca cornered me again. "Michael, think about what you're doing. The boys rely on you." "That's the problem," I said. "They rely on me, but they don't respect me." She pressed her palms to her temples. "You can't make them love you by punishing them." "I'm not punishing them," I said quietly. "I'm just stepping out of a game I was never allowed to play." She looked away. "Ken won't help. You know that." "I do," I said. "And maybe that's the lesson they need to learn." The next morning, the first cracks appeared. Jake came downstairs holding his phone. "My gas card's declined," he said. "You forget to pay it?" I sipped my coffee. "No, I canceled it." He stared at me, half laughing. "You're joking." "No." His expression changed, confusion first, then anger. "Why?" "Because you told me I'm not your dad. And if that's true, then your dad can handle your gas money." He blinked at me, speechless. "That's messed up." I shrugged. "So was what you said." He stormed out of the kitchen, muttering curses under his breath. I didn't stop him. For once, I let the silence do the talking. By noon, Lucas discovered his streaming account was gone. He stomped into my office, phone in hand. "Why is Netflix not working?" "Because it's mine," I said, not looking up. "And I stopped paying for it." He scoffed. "That's so petty." "Petty is pretending I don't exist while living off my paycheck." He didn't answer, just rolled his eyes and left, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Rebecca confronted me that evening. "You're tearing this family apart," she said. I looked at her. "No, I'm just refusing to keep it together with money while everyone else uses it to buy their freedom from respect." She glared at me, tears in her eyes. "You're punishing them for being young." "No," I said. "I'm reminding them that every choice has a price. They wanted independence from me, now they have it." For years, I had told myself that love meant giving, even when you got nothing back. But love without respect isn't kindness. It's servitude. And that night, as I sat in my office watching the transaction alerts stop one by one, I felt something I hadn't in years. Control. By the next morning, the silence in the house had changed. It wasn't just tension now, it was fear. Jake avoided me. Lucas kept to his room. Rebecca walked around with the brittle calm of someone pretending the floor isn't cracking beneath her feet. But I felt light, almost free. I had spent years trying to be the father they refused to see. Now I was done. Done fixing their mistakes. Done paying their way. Done begging for respect that would never come. The house was quieter that night. No laughter, no music, no demands. Just the echo of my own decision. I poured a glass of bourbon, sat at the table, and whispered to the empty air, "You're not my dad." The words no longer hurt. They sounded like truth, clean, final, liberating. Because finally I believed them. The silence didn't last long. It never does in a house built on entitlement. Within days, the echoes of my decision began to ricochet off the walls. It started with Jake. He came storming into the kitchen one morning, his voice already sharp with panic. "My card's not working," he said. "It keeps saying insufficient funds." I kept stirring my coffee. "Then I guess you're out of money." He stared at me, waiting for the punchline that never came. "Did you forget to transfer?" "No," I said. "I didn't forget. I stopped." His face twisted. "What do you mean, you stopped?" "I mean what I said the other night. I'm not your dad, remember? So I'm not your banker either." He blinked at me, as if he couldn't process the words. "You can't just stop paying for stuff. That's not how this works." "It is now," I said. "Ask your real father." He laughed, short and bitter. "Ken doesn't have that kind of money." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spat on the man who does." He opened his mouth again, but no sound came out. He left the kitchen muttering something about me being petty, childish, a control freak. His insults hit the air and fell flat. I'd heard worse from him. I paid for worse. That afternoon, it was Lucas's turn. He hovered in the doorway of my office, trying to look casual. "Hey," he said. "Mom said you might have messed up my trip payment. The guys are waiting for me to confirm." "I didn't mess up anything," I said. "I canceled it." His grin faltered. "What? Why?" I looked at him over the rim of my glasses. "Because that trip was a luxury, not a need. Luxuries aren't my problem anymore." He scoffed. "You're kidding. Everyone already booked. You can't just." "I can," I said, cutting him off. "And I did." He tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Michael, don't do this." I was out of line. "Okay?" We were all tense that night. "You weren't out of line," I said. "You were honest. You said exactly what you felt. You don't see me as a father, so don't expect me to act like one." He frowned, crossing his arms. "So you're really going to let me miss the trip over one comment?" "Not one comment. Years of them." He sighed dramatically and tried a softer tone. "Look, I'm sorry, all right? Can't we just move past it?" "No," I said, "because sorry isn't an eraser." You don't get to spit on a man for years and then apologize when the money stops flowing. He looked stunned, as if the rules of his world had shifted. Mom's gonna lose it when she hears this. She already did, I said. She'll survive. Lucas shook his head, muttering under his breath, "You're unbelievable," and walked out. By the next evening, Rebecca's patience cracked. She found me in the living room, laptop open, balancing the budget like always. "Michael," she said, voice tight, "this has gone too far." "No," I said. "It's gone exactly far enough." "They're miserable," she said. "They can't eat out. They can't drive. Jake's panicking about his classes." "Good," I said. "Maybe they'll finally learn that comfort isn't free." She exhaled sharply, pacing. "You're punishing them for a stupid argument." "No," I said, looking up at her. "I'm teaching them what respect costs." She folded her arms. "You're acting like money is the only thing that matters. That's rich coming from people who only acknowledged me when the money was there." Her eyes flashed with anger. "You think this makes you look strong? It makes you look cruel." "Maybe, but at least I'm finally visible." She left then, slamming the door, and the sound felt like punctuation, the end of a sentence that had dragged on too long. Over the next few days, the house became a theater of quiet desperation. Jake spent hours on the phone, trying to reach financial aid offices, calling his father, even messaging old friends. I overheard him one night, voice shaking as he said, "No, he just stopped paying. I don't know why, man. He's gone crazy." Lucas tried manipulation instead. He'd start with friendliness, ask about my day, offer to help out with chores he used to ignore. The first time, I almost laughed. He cleaned the kitchen like a man bargaining with fate. When I thanked him, he smiled awkwardly. "So, about that trip, the guys said I could still join if I pay by Friday." I nodded. "Good for them." He waited. "So, maybe if I help out more." "Lucas," I interrupted, "you don't have to earn my money. You just have to live without it." The smile faded. "You're really serious, huh?" "Dead serious." He left the room without another word. By Friday, the house had gone quiet again. Rebecca barely spoke to me. She was caught between anger and fear, trying to hold her sons together while pretending her marriage wasn't unraveling. She thought silence would wear me down, that I'd get tired of the tension and cave. But silence had become my ally. It was the only honest thing left between us. Then came the weekend, the day their world finally cracked. Jake burst into my office, waving his phone. "The university sent me a warning. If I don't pay the balance by Monday, I lose my enrollment. Do you even understand what that means?" I looked at him calmly. "Yes, it means your father needs to pay his share." He laughed bitterly. "You're insane. You think he'll help? He barely answers the phone." "Then that's your problem to solve," I said. He slammed his hand on the desk. "You can't do this. You raised us." "No," I said. "I paid for you. There's a difference." His face went red. "So that's it? You're just walking away after everything?" "I'm not walking away," I said. "I'm just standing still while you finally see what it looks like without me holding everything up." He clenched his jaw, then tried again, softer this time. "Look, I was an asshole, okay? I didn't mean what I said." "You did," I said. "You just didn't mean the consequences." He stared at me, lost for words, then left, slamming the door so hard the shelves rattled. That night, Rebecca came to me again. She wasn't angry this time, just tired, desperate. "Please, Michael," she said quietly. "You're proving your point. They get it now. You can stop." "Do they?" I asked. "Because all I've heard are excuses. No apologies that mean anything. Just panic." "They're scared," she whispered. "You've always been the steady one. They don't know how to handle this." "Then maybe they should start learning." Tears filled her eyes. "You're breaking this family." I looked at her for a long time before answering. "Rebecca, there is no family. There's me paying for 4 people who treat me like an outsider, and you pretending that's love." I stopped believing in this long before they said the words out loud. She turned away, shoulders shaking. I never asked you to stop caring. I closed the laptop. No, you just asked me to keep paying for people who don't. That night, I sat alone at the table, the house dark except for the glow of a single lamp. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to buy my way into belonging. Every dollar was a plea. See me, respect me, acknowledge that I'm here. And every time, the return on investment was zero. Now, for the first time, the balance was even. A week later, Jake came to me again. No arrogance this time. No smirk. He stood in the doorway, eyes down, hands shoved into his pockets. I talked to Dad, he said quietly. He can't help. He said he's broke. I nodded. I'm not surprised. Jake hesitated. I don't know what to do. I looked at him for a long moment. Figure it out. That's what grown men do. He swallowed hard, nodded once, and left. I sat there after he'd gone, feeling something heavy settle inside me. Not guilt, not satisfaction, just truth. They were finally learning what I'd known all along. A father isn't the man who gives you what you want. He's the one who teaches you what happens when you take without respect. And I was done teaching for free. The house didn't explode after that. It just deflated. The noise drained out first, then the warmth. By the end of the second week, it felt like living inside a photograph. Everything familiar but frozen. No sound, no movement, no pulse. Jake stopped slamming doors. Lucas stopped trying to charm his way back into my wallet. They moved around me quietly, like tenants waiting for an eviction notice that had already been served. Rebecca filled the silence with chores. Laundry, vacuuming, anything to keep her hands busy. But there's no cleaning product strong enough to scrub guilt out of the air. The first true fracture came on a Sunday morning. Jake was on the phone with the university again, pacing the kitchen. His voice cracked when he said, "Yes, I understand. I'll try to make the payment by the end of the month." When he hung up, he looked at me across the table, eyes rimmed red. "They're going to drop my classes if I don't pay. I'll lose the semester." I nodded slowly. "Then you'd better find a job." He stared at me like he hadn't heard right. "A job? You mean work?" "Yes," I said. "The thing adults do when their bills come due." Lucas was listening from the doorway. "You're really okay watching him fail?" he asked. I didn't look at him. "It's not failure. It's consequence." They both went quiet. A week later, Jake came home with grease on his hands and a name tag from a mechanic's shop. Lucas started tutoring kids online for pocket money. It wasn't pride that I felt, it was relief. For the first time, the noise of their entitlement had been replaced with the sound of reality. Rebecca didn't thank me for it. She couldn't. Every improvement in them was a reminder that I'd been right. And that's a truth she wasn't ready to touch. She still tried sometimes, speaking softly at night, hoping to find the man who used to bend. "Michael," she whispered once. "They're trying now. You could ease up." "I already have," I said. I stopped fighting for respect that was never coming. She turned toward the window, eyes wet. "You've changed." "I finally stopped pretending," I said. Spring slipped into summer. The house grew quieter still. Jake left early for shifts and came back exhausted. Lucas counted his money carefully, buying gas only when necessary. Rebecca's laughter disappeared first, then her patience. She started spending nights at her sister's. To clear her head. I didn't stop her. When people start looking for space, it's only fair to give it. One evening she came back with a stack of envelopes. "Ken's sending money," she said. "He's helping again." I almost smiled. Good. Maybe now he can actually earn the title he brags about. She winced. "Do you even hear yourself anymore?" "Yes," I said. "For the first time, I do." The next morning, Ken himself showed up. He didn't knock. He just walked into my driveway like he still had rights here. His car looked newly washed, like he'd borrowed pride from a car wash vacuum. "We need to talk," he said. "We don't," I answered. He stepped closer. "The boys are struggling. You made your point. Let it go. I studied him, the man whose absence had been the ghost I fought for years. You want to help them? I said. Do it. No one's stopping you. He scowled. This isn't about me. It's about you punishing kids. They're not kids, I said. They're mirrors. I'm done being the reflection they spit on. He opened his mouth again, then shut it. Maybe he saw the exhaustion in my face. Maybe he realized the argument was over before it began. He left without another word. The sound of his engine fading down the street felt like closure. A week later, Rebecca packed a suitcase. She said it was temporary, but we both knew better. She avoided eye contact while she zipped the bag. They need stability, she said. They need accountability, I corrected. She hesitated at the door. You'll regret this, Michael. I shook my head. No, I regret everything that led to it. When the door closed behind her, the house didn't feel emptier. Felt lighter. Days turned into weeks. I kept the same routines: work, gym, silence. The girls called sometimes, worried, and I told them the truth. I'm fine. The noise is gone. They didn't press for details. They'd grown up watching me give too much. Maybe they understood better than anyone what it meant to stop. Occasionally, I'd see updates online. Jake posted a picture of himself in work boots, captioned, "Earning it." Lucas shared a photo of his tutoring setup. Even Rebecca appeared in one, smiling weakly beside Ken at some family barbecue. The comments were full of hearts and lies. I didn't react. Their lives were theirs again. One evening, I found an envelope in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside was a short note. Michael, I get it now. I didn't back then. You were right about everything. I hope you're doing okay, Jake. I read it twice, then folded it neatly and put it in a drawer. No anger, no pride, just the quiet certainty that understanding always comes late, and sometimes that's the price of truth. The house has stayed silent since. The photos on the walls still hang crooked. The couch still dips on the side where Rebecca used to sit, but I've learned to live with the asymmetry. Peace doesn't look like perfection. It looks like absence. The absence of shouting, of pretense, of unearned dependence. Some nights I walk past their empty rooms. I don't feel loss anymore, only distance. Love without respect is a debt that never stops collecting interest. I finally stopped paying. I still think about them, of course. I wonder if they ever talk about me, if the word stepfather has stopped sounding like an insult. Maybe they'll understand one day that what I withdrew wasn't money. It was mercy. But understanding isn't a condition for peace. It's just the echo that follows it. People ask sometimes if I'd ever take them back. If I'd open the door if Rebecca showed up with apologies and tears. The answer is simple. No. Because forgiveness without change is just another transaction, and I'm done being the one who funds it. I used to think silence was punishment. Now I know it's freedom. And if respect has a cost, I've finally learned how to pay it to myself.